Hey everyone, welcome to Josh's Boxes. My name is Josh. I'm going to take out my earphones so that I can properly hear and communicate with you. Today is a perfect fall day. It is so beautiful outside. So I'm going to spend the day talking to you instead of going outside. Today I wanted to make a video really quick about some world building that I've been doing for the world of Razed. Or the Razed Chronicles is the story that I would put in this world. It's been a long time since I've made a Razed video, and I know that a lot of you signed up on this channel, subscribed because of your interest in Razed, the Razed Chronicles. So today I wanted to share a little bit of world building that I did. The format that I used for this is based on the Lodestar Alpha setting made by MechaHack. That was my previous video. I'll link it wherever. It'll be one of these two things. I don't know where it shows up. But so check out that video if you're interested in the techniques that I used to build this world. I basically just read the Lodestar Alpha setting in the MechaHack book and then kind of followed, created a generic template based off of that and followed it to make this right here. So if that didn't bore you to death, and if that was a coherent sentence, stick around. So the location that I want to talk to you about today, first one I've built, it's a location specifically, it's called Tabur's Altar. The idea is that Tabur's Altar is a sprawling, ruined city in the world of Razed. If you're not familiar, it's like a dark fantasy post-apocalyptic world. There were these monsters called the Verosians that came and invaded and made everything kind of stinky. And so Tabur's Altar was the capital of this empire known as Verlodia, and it was really fertile, one of the most fertile places on the earth. And so they did mostly trading and politics. They didn't do a lot of war and fighting with other people. They just over thousands of years used their abundance to grow really powerful and adopt empires in. Kind of similar, one of the basic inspirations is the Byzantine Empire. And a lot of Roman areas, obviously Roman areas were conquered by force, but they allowed people to kind of keep their customs and stuff. So after several thousand years of slowly absorbing nearby areas with their abundance, the empire became very diverse, and so it was there was a lot of conflict and turmoil as cultural and ideological ideas clashed. I've got it all on my laptop here, so if it looks like I'm reading off of something, it's because it was. And then, about 100 years before the invasion, this guy known as Emperor Tabur had a vision, and his vision was he was visited by all the different gods of his people, and they told him that everyone is confused and messed up, and that they are actually one united pantheon rather than completely separate religions. And so, having received this vision, he created this religious movement known as Palinism, named after him, Tabur Palinism. And it was basically this religious movement that really focused on unity. And it combined a lot of the cultures, and obviously not everyone was satisfied with everything and people wanted to stick with their culture, but over the years it quickly gained in popularity because it was a way for people to unite, and there was a big push from the government to be a part of this religion, a lot of economic incentives and stuff like that. And so it explodes, it gets really big, it spreads over the entire empire, and Tabur decides to create a holy city called Tabur's Altar. So before, their capital was right on the ocean, but they go all the way to the source of their river on this big giant mountain, and they carve a city into not really into the side of the mountain, it's not in the mountain, but they built it on the slopes of the mountain. So it's very impractical. They have to ship up a lot of supplies there, but it is a powerful representation of Rholodia's might and power. And as Palanism grows in popularity, the people start like this kind of religious fervor that turns into expansionism, and they want to force people nearby to join Palanism and submit. And so they had like started this big military campaign and were like having war with all these people on the outskirts when the Verosians attacked and like landed and took over the whole world. Basically, there's very few parts of the world that don't have at least an influence of the Verosians. And this specific, because the Verosians landed in a bunch of different places, and this one landed literally inside the bounds of the city. And so, like, even though it was like very well defended from outside, like sieges and stuff, it got crushed. Like everyone got trapped basically inside the city, and the Verosians like took over, destroyed a bunch of stuff, killed most of the people. And that brings us to, it's been like 10 to 20 years, I haven't fully decided, since this has happened. So people have kind of settled into this like Verosians rule everything. And now there are 3/4 dominant factions in this city, and that's what most of the world building is. There's the Verosian colony, there's the Crimson Hounds, there's the 5th Brigade, and there's the Neo-Palanists. So the Verosians are obviously the big dogs in charge. They are like these big, like probably 8-foot tall draconic beings that meld the metal into their skin, and they have like fire breath and stuff like that. So they're super powerful. They've got really like dragon scale kind of skin plus the metal that's infused into it. So they're really hard to kill. So they pretty much rule everything, but they don't really care that much about the city. So they have dug these tunnels in the mountains and just kind of rule from afar. And they're led by the queen of the colony, who it's very similar to like ants or termites, where the queen births everyone. And they're all like direct descendants of the queen. Then there are the Crimson Hounds, which are the lackeys of the Verosians. They don't really want to be involved in the people's lives, but they want to take the resources from those who survive in the city. And so the Crimson Hounds are like more the boots on the ground control of the city. Like probably 3/4 of the city is controlled by the Crimson Hounds. And they're like officially sanctioned by the Verosians, where they made a deal that if they brought like a monthly tribute and like of materials and slaves and stuff like that to the Verosians, then they would be allowed to like be in charge and they'd be spared. And so basically most of the people in this city have to like have these like scrambled together farms and gardens and raise animals in a city. It's like a ruined city. And so it's like really hard. Not a lot of abundance. It's very like they barely make enough food for themselves, and they have to give this tribute. So it's pretty miserable. And the Crimson Hounds live like relatively luxuriously. It's still post-apocalyptic, so it's not like they're living like kings, but comparatively they're living like kings. And they like kind of prowl around most of the city, getting this tribute from people. And they also just do like, they're kind of just thugs. They do lots of bullying and extorting and protection fees, and it's basically whoever can't pay the tribute is sent to the Verosian tunnels to work for the Verosians. But there are a couple areas that aren't controlled by the Crimson Hounds. The first is the area controlled by the 5th Brigade, which was, there was 2 brigades of soldiers stationed in the city when the Verosians invaded. The first is the 1st Brigade, which is like the Emperor's personal army, and they all died. Basically, they like went to go fight the Verosians and all got wiped out. And the 5th Brigade was like, we're actually gonna dip. And so they left and then have come back to the city in recent years because they want to like restore the Rholodian Empire to its former might. So they have a lot of like border clashes with the Crimson Hounds. They're significantly smaller, but they're like a fully decked out military brigade. And so they're led by a former general, and they among them is Caelus Palamas, who is like the great whatever grandson of Tabur. So he's like the heir to the throne basically, and they want to like their goal is to reclaim the whole capital and revamp the Rhelodian Empire as with Caelus as the heir to the throne. And then the last faction is the Neopalanists, which are it was started by a group of former imperial priests, including a high priest, Sister Daedalus, who was the only high priest who survived the invasion. They see Tabor's altar as kind of like a failed holy city, and they basically want to scour the whole thing, get all of the religious artifacts. They're like a religious group, Neo-Palanists, obviously. They see Palanism as like kind of a failed attempt at a perfect religion, and they want to start over. And so they want to like get all the relics and all the scriptures and stuff in the city out, and then restart the Rhelodian or like kind of Palanism somewhere else. They see the city as a failed attempt. And so the three big factions in the boots of the city have like this conflict because the 5th Brigade doesn't want, or I guess the Crimson Hounds don't want the 5th Brigade to be in control, obviously, and they don't want the Neopalanists to take all their relics and stuff because that is some of the stuff they use as tribute to the Verosians every month. Then the 5th Brigade wants to revamp the Rhelodian Empire, so they don't want to start somewhere else. So that puts them in conflict with the Neopalanists, and obviously they want to take over the city, so that's in conflict with the Crimson Hounds. And the Neopalanists have to fight the Crimson Hounds to get the relics, and they're in odds with the 5th Brigade because they don't want Rhelodia to start over again. They don't want to rebuild the old. They want to start with a brand new somewhere else. And so they're all kind of in odds with each other. There are like a handful of people that they call scavengers that don't belong to any of the factions, and they kind of like sneak around the area, the city, and just like steal from people. So they're seen by pests. They're seen as pests by all of the major factions. And there's like very, very few of these people. Like, in this whole giant city that used to hold hundreds of thousands of people, there's like probably less than 20 people that are like this. Most of the people are living, who are alive. This city probably has less than 10,000 people in it. Those who are alive are under the boot of the Crimson Hounds, and then there's the two that are part of the Neo-Palanists or the 5th Brigade that kind of have their independent operations. So that's the 4 big factions, and I also created 4 big locations, one for each of the factions, basically. So the first is the Verosian tunnels. That's where the Verosian colony is. They literally bored into the mountain and have all these tunnels that they're setting up their colony in. And they use the slaves to extend those tunnels deeper into the mountains. And it's really brutal work. It's really dangerous. The life expectancy is very short. You do not want to be sent to work in the Verosian tunnels. So that's why people pay the tribute. The second location is the Den. It's like the home of the Crimson Hounds. It's, your classic hive of scum and villainy kind of thing. And of note, there is like a fighting pit here. That's like what the hounds do to entertain themselves when they're not bullying people, is a different form of bullying, basically, where they have fighting pits where captured scavengers, specifically like the people who are roaming about and trying to not be a part of any of the factions and steal from everyone. If they capture them, they put them in the fighting pits and force them to fight each other or wild animals. It's like, gladiatorial combat, basically. So that's what they do for fun. Then there's the Eastern Tower. This is the location of the 5th Brigade. It's like obviously all the way on the east. It's the only tower that still stands from the original wall, and they've like made it into this military fort. It's like the tower itself and a couple blocks around it are very like well guarded by the 5th Brigade. They would have trouble probably fighting off the Verosians, but the Verosian, they're a minor presence, and so the Verosians don't care that much. But it is strong enough to fend off the Crimson Hounds and to like occasionally do like strike operations or sting operations where they dart out, try and fight the Crimson Hounds, and then go back to their fort. The problem they have is that Like there was a bunch of food supply stored there, and it's starting to run dry, and they don't have much farmable land, so they can't really grow unless they make a lot of progress against the Crimson Hounds, and so they're in a little bit of a stalemate right now. And then there's the Neopalinist Temple. This is the last location. It was a former Imperial storage depot, but they've like organized it to be like a library basically of relics and scriptures and stuff, and they're organizing all the stuff there, and once they feel like they've got enough to restart Palinism, they're gonna get out of there. And there's a special room within called the Forbidden Room, where rumor has it, because only the High Priest, the leader, Sister Daedalus, is allowed to go in. They say that the skeleton of Emperor Tabur Palamis resides there, and it like blesses the area with safety as long as the bones are properly cared for. But that's just a rumor. No one has ever confirmed it. So that's the locations. That's Tabur's altar. It was probably boring just listening to me talk about all this, but I will include a link in the description below to the document that I wrote that has all this information. It's 3 total pages. It has more of the history, like just more kind of in-depth stuff. I went very general, but it's only 3 pages. So if you're interested in learning more, reading the details, check out that. I have videos planned where I want to draw like a map of this city and show where the different territories are. I have a story planned about one of the scavengers in this town, and like his story that I'd like to write one day. Sorry, Matt, I know. So hopefully you found this interesting. I would love to do more world building about these factions, and hopefully like maybe have some more visuals, like maybe me like drawing members of these factions to give you like a visual, that kind of thing. But that's Tabur's Altar. That's some of the world building I've been doing for Razed lately. Hope you liked it. If you've got questions, feel free to let me know in the comments. But thanks so much for watching, and until next time.